and today on my series of DIY, we're going to be doing some painting. We'll start from the very beginning of what we need. Now the paint we're going to be using is Vice Bar Emulsion. This is white. As you can imagine, it's white. Right. Now, before we even start, you need to get yourself dressed up into some old clothes or overalls of some description. Now, with any type of paint, it's best to have the windows wide open. And for the real painters out there, you also want a room temperature of around about 16 Celsius. If you go a bit above that, the paint dries out a little bit too quick. So you've got to remember that if it's too hot, paint dries out quick, and then you may need to add water to your paint because of the evaporation. But we'll get to that on another video. So all we need is some rollers. So if you've got a rough finish, you need a thick pile. And if you've got a nice smooth one, get yourself a thin one. Well, this isn't a thin one, but you get the drift. A roller. Now, it's best to get this type of roller, that type, because it's got a bar in the middle and it's the best type you can get. And it won't sort of move about all over the plaster. Paintbrush. Best to get about an inch wide paintbrush. Nice and good quality one at least. You like this. Also, something to stir your paint up. And it looks like I've been robbed in the kitchen, doesn't it? Yeah, soup ladle. That's for ladling your paint out the bucket if you hadn't realised. So, what else do we need? Now if you're starting from the beginning, you've got old plaster like this over here, then that's going to need a little bit more work. That will need prepping first beforehand, because up the top there you can see there's some holes. Now I'll be covering this in another video, but all we're going to be concerned about today is straightforward new plaster, or basically after you've prepped the walls, because it's important to prep that first. There's a lot into painting and decorating, but this is what we're going to be doing at a later stage. This is what I classify as a wash. So you can see that. This is a wash coat. It looks very patchy because it is. You can see above the top here, that's very patchy. That is what we classify as a wash coat. Now after this, you're going to be doing a one coat. So we'll go through the stages of how to get to this point. Right, so before we start, now in another video, like I've just said, we're going to be covering washing down and filling walls. So you'll be using things like this, polyfiller and washing. That's on old walls. Now for prepping walls which have already been plastered, this is where you need sealants. This is one brand, very, very expensive, but this product itself does a multitude of sins. If you've got any spots or anything, you get the product to cover the wall first. Now this one is for killing stains. So if you've got a moldy patch, hopefully if you've cured the patch first, and then you can use this on top. Allegedly it works. In another video we're going to cover this one and go through it and see if it really does work. So I've got some black patches that I need to cover. We don't want to go there with any sealants because, to be honest, for years and years I've been doing it another way. Now I've been using this Vice Bar paint. Now I'd recommend just doing a white base coat to start with on almost any type of paint. Bear this in mind, if you've already got a shiny wall, then you've got to make it flat. But this is just as a base coat, I call it. Now to make the wash, which we wash the walls through, what you need is 2 buckets, one with warm water and one with half filled with paint. And all we do is mix them together and give it a good stir around. And it's that pretty simple. So that is your base wash. Now what we do is, first and foremost, the best idea is to check your plaster to make sure it's nice and smooth, because in some cases you'll find that plaster does have bits in it. So just scrape them off, and if they need filling, then just fill them. But you should be fine. So the next thing you need is your paintbrush. And what we're going to do is first cut in around all the edges. It's those areas that you can't get into. Another tip, as you can see, I've used cardboard, and this is for your roller. So when you're rolling the corners, you can put this into a flat edge and roll up. So it actually really works well. Once you've got your wall completely cut in all the way around, the next part is rolling it. Now don't really worry about what you're doing there. All you're interested is covering the wall with paint. Now with this wash coat, it's going to look terrible like you've just seen earlier. It does look a bit messy, it does look patchy. Don't worry about that, because that is what happens. Because the plaster just sucks in all the water and leaves your paint on the top. But also some of that paint goes into the pigment of your plaster, which does help. And that's how I got this beautiful finish here. Now we're going to create this finish. So once you've done your wash coat and you've been all the way around, I'd leave it for a day, and that's what I normally do. Here I've done 3 stages. I've done the kitchen, this area, and this area. So I first started with this particular area, get it prepped ready, cut in, wash coat, then I checked this one, then I've done a first coat on this, then a wash coat on that one. So each day I've got something to do. Now earlier this morning when I got home from work, I gave this its final coat. This has had 2 coats of paint, and that's it. You don't need any, with vice bar, you only need 2 coats. So wasn't that easy? How to paint new plaster? Yeah, it's dead simple. And in the next episode, I'm going to show you how to fill the walls and prep up your old plaster. Ready. And if you like this type of content, please subscribe and please share. And we'll see you again very shortly on the Crazy Baker channel. Laters!